PhET has been used in a variety of ways. You can use it for pre-class or pre-activity. We use them a lot in classes in terms of lecture for visual aids. You can also use them in labs. At the university, we use them in recitations. You can use them for group activities or individual activities. And we're beginning to study how they can best be used for homework.
So one way that we use PhET is with concept tests or clicker questions. You could do this both in a recitation instead of just solving homework problems, or we use them a lot in lectures to supplement the lecture material. So in this case, the instructor has probably showed the simulation, the energy skate park, and is then asking the class a clicker question to help them work through the conceptual understanding of what they've seen in the simulation.
Another excellent way to use the sims is to extend things that students have done in the lab. If you could use a qualitative lab like a motion probe, but the problem with that lots of times is the data is not very quantitative. Then you can use a simulation where there are controlled constraints and they can get better data. In the next slide, it shows an example of the Vernier Lab Pro, and you can see that although the students can get an idea of what's going on, they can't get very good measurements. And then there's the moving man simulation, which demonstrates that you can get measurable quantities.
Another thing that PhET can be used for is for inquiry labs, because PhET, unlike hands-on physical material lab, lets you easily isolate a lot of different variables and manipulate them and get immediate data in order to do replicable experiments to replace a traditional lab. So another thing that's really helpful about PhET as a lab activity is that you can do things that you couldn't do in the real lab, such as taking the skater to the moon or to Jupiter.
This slide shows one of the common demonstrations in a physics classroom is we use a piece of rope and we shake it and we ask the students, what did you see? But lots of times the students can't actually understand what they saw. So the simulation slows everything down and allows the students to see what the experts would see.
Another way that we use the PhET simulations is to demonstrate the scientific model, or how scientists understand what's going on in the world. For example, oftentimes we'll rub a balloon on a sweater and then stick it to the wall. What PhET allows us to do is demonstrate just what's happening at a microscopic level, which is that you're rubbing electrons off of the sweater and then repelling the electrons in the wall, and that's how the balloon sticks. So it makes visible the scientific model.
Another nice thing about PhET is you can change variables that you normally couldn't change. So if you had a recitation or a homework, you can give students a challenge and just ask them very open-ended questions that you wouldn't be able to do because the equipment would be so expensive. Here's an example where you want them to study lenses, and they can just play around with the lenses and find out what might happen.